She took my love, my years, and my child, then erased me. I waited for the day life collected its debt. The child I chose. I raised my sister's child like he fell from my own body. That's the truth people don't understand when they say, but he wasn't yours. Love doesn't ask for DNA. It started in Detroit, Michigan, on a snow-heavy night when my sister, Naomi, showed up at my apartment with a crying newborn and eyes swollen from bad decisions. She said she needed just a few weeks to get back on her feet. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. I named him Ethan. I woke up for midnight feedings. I learned how to braid his hair before kindergarten. I sat on cold bleachers during soccer practice, clapping until my hands burned. Every Mother's Day card had my name on it. Naomi drifted in and out like a seasonal guest, always promising more, always leaving less. When she finally moved to Atlanta, chasing a startup dream and a man who didn't last, she left Ethan behind without hesitation. I stayed. I worked double shifts at a nursing home. I skipped promotions so I could be home by dinner. I built a life around that boy's laughter, believing sacrifice was love's purest form. Then Naomi got rich. Silicon Valley money, tech interviews, magazine features. She came back wearing confidence like designer perfume, and suddenly, she wanted her son back. She smiled when she said it, like she wasn't about to rip my heart out. And that smile, that was my first warning. Before I continue, please subscribe to my channel to see more interesting stories. Thank you. Signed here, Amber. Naomi flew me to San Jose, California, first class. That should have scared me. We sat in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. Lawyers smiled too much. Coffee sat untouched. Naomi slid a folder toward me like she was offering a gift. It wasn't a gift. It was a custody agreement. I just want to make things official, she said lightly. You know, for Ethan's future. The words temporary guardian stared back at me in bold print. Temporary. After 12 years. I laughed at first. Then I realized no one else was laughing. Her lawyer explained it calmly. How Naomi's financial stability, public profile, and biological claim made this the logical next step. They praised my help like I'd been a nanny, not a mother. Naomi avoided my eyes. I asked one question. What does Ethan want? She finally looked up. He's a child. He'll adjust. That was when I understood. This wasn't about love. It was about image. They offered me a settlement. Enough money to disappear quietly. Enough to rewrite the story where Naomi was the hero who reclaimed her son. I didn't take the money. But I signed. Because when they brought Ethan into the room, confused and clutching his backpack, Naomi whispered something that shattered me forever. He'll forget you faster than you think. That night, I flew back to Chicago alone. And my life fell silent in ways I still can't describe. Erased. Naomi didn't just take Ethan. She erased me. My number stopped working. Emails bounced back. When I showed up at her Atlanta home weeks later, security turned me away like a stranger. A threat. Ethan's school blocked my access. Medical records vanished. Even photos I'd posted for years disappeared after copyright claims from Naomi's media team. It was like I'd imagined motherhood. I spiraled. I cried in grocery store aisles. I slept holding a sweater that still smelled like Ethan's shampoo. Friends told me to be strong. They didn't understand that strength without purpose is just survival. Then the interviews came. Naomi told her story on podcasts, in magazines, on morning shows filmed in New York City. She framed herself as a single mother who finally reclaimed her son after years of struggle. I was never mentioned. Not once. And the world applauded her. But life has a way of listening quietly, watching patiently. While Naomi was busy climbing higher, she never noticed me moving differently. I stopped begging. I stopped chasing. I started learning. I went back to school. I studied family law, nonprofit management, and trauma counseling, not for revenge, I told myself, but for healing. Still, every lesson felt like a brick laid on a path I couldn't yet see. Then one night I got a message from an unknown number. It was Ethan. Just 3 words. "Aunt Amber, please." The cracks. Ethan called me from a bathroom, whispering like he was committing a crime. He was 16 now. His voice deeper. His laughter gone. He told me Naomi had changed. That fame had hardened her. That home felt like a performance, cameras, sponsors, expectations. Love measured in optics. "She says you abandoned me," he said quietly. That was when something inside me broke and sharpened. I didn't poison him against her. I didn't defend myself. I just listened. I became the safe place again, even from a distance. Over the next year, Naomi's perfect life began to crack. Her startup faced lawsuits. Former partners accused her of fraud. An expose surfaced, questioning her ethics. Sponsors disappeared. And then the worst blow landed. Ethan ran away. He showed up at my door in Milwaukee, shaking and exhausted. I held him like the child I never stopped raising. Naomi called the police. Lawyers followed. Threats poured in. But this time, the truth had witnesses. Ethan was old enough to choose. And he chose me. Naomi's empire began collapsing the same way it was built. Fast, loud, and in public. She didn't call me for months. Until the day her name stopped trending for success and started trending for scandal. That was when she finally remembered I existed. The call. Naomi called at 2:14 a.m. Her voice was unrecognizable, thin, desperate, stripped of power. "Amber, I need you." I didn't answer right away. I looked at Ethan asleep on the couch, peaceful for the first time in years. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who begged to be seen. "I'm listening," I said. Her company was gone. Her accounts frozen. Lawsuits everywhere. Friends vanished. Media silent. She was facing charges and public humiliation. "I just want my family back," she whispered. "I made mistakes." Mistakes. That word carried a lifetime of pain. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I told her I would meet her in Los Angeles. Not to reconcile, but to close a chapter properly. As I hung up, I felt something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not triumph. Clarity. Because this story was no longer about revenge. It was about truth finally standing in the light. And Naomi was about to learn that love you exploit doesn't disappear. It waits. The terms of silence. We met in Los Angeles, in a quiet hotel lounge far from cameras. Naomi arrived alone. No lawyers, no assistants. Just fear stitched into her posture. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. That hurt her more than any slap could have. She talked for 20 minutes without breathing. About betrayal. About loneliness. About how the world turned on her. She cried when she mentioned Ethan, like motherhood was something she could summon only when convenient. I let her talk. Then I slid my own folder across the table. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It wasn't revenge. It was structure. A proposal to create a nonprofit for displaced and exploited caregivers, women who raised children that weren't legally theirs and were discarded without protection. I had already filed the paperwork in Delaware. The board was selected. Funding was lined up. Her name was nowhere on it. "I need your public testimony," I said calmly. "The truth. Everything." She stared at me. "You're using me."
No, incorrect.
"I'm giving you a chance to matter again." The condition was simple. She would speak publicly, admit what she did, step away from the spotlight forever. In return, I would help ensure Ethan never had to testify against her. Silence filled the space. Naomi finally whispered, "You've changed." I nodded. "So, has the ending." When the camera turns. Naomi's confession aired on a quiet Sunday morning.
No glamour.
No makeup team. Just her, seated in a plain studio in Pasadena, speaking without edits. She admitted she abandoned her child. That she erased me. That her success was built on lies she told herself until they became public truth. The internet exploded. But this time, the outrage wasn't directed at me. People began asking questions about caregivers, about unprotected guardians, about emotional labor that never gets acknowledged. Stories poured in from across the country: Baltimore, Oakland, St. Louis, Houston. Women who loved children's society told them didn't belong to them. Our nonprofit went viral. Ethan watched the interview beside me. He didn't cry. He just exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "She finally told the truth," he said. That night, Naomi texted me one sentence. "I did everything you asked." I didn't reply, because the real consequences weren't mine to deliver. They belonged to life. And life was just getting started. The custody hearing took place in Madison, Wisconsin, quiet and procedural, but the weight of it pressed on my chest like a storm. Naomi didn't fight. That surprised everyone. She acknowledged Ethan's wishes. She accepted supervised contact only. She relinquished any claim to publicizing his life. The judge looked at me differently when she said, "Ms. Edwin, what you provided was not temporary care. It was sustained motherhood." Those words landed harder than applause.
Étant officially chosme.
But the twist came after. Naomi requested a private moment with me outside the courtroom. She looked smaller now, stripped of ego, stripped of applause. "I thought money could replace love," she said quietly. I was wrong. I studied her face, not with hatred, but with clarity. "Love doesn't compete," I replied. "It stays." She nodded, tears falling without drama. For the first time, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She accepted distance. That was new, and strangely necessary. The world I built quietly. While Naomi's world collapsed publicly, mine expanded quietly. Our nonprofit opened offices in Philadelphia and San Diego. Universities invited me to speak. Legislators asked for input on caregiver protection laws.
No spotlight. No vanity.
Just impact. Ethan thrived.
College plans. Therapy.
Laughter returning slowly, naturally. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the trees, he asked me something that stopped my breath. "Did you ever regret raising me?" The question carried years of guilt he shouldn't have owned. "Never," I said instantly. "You were never a burden. You were the point." He smiled, then really smiled. That's when I understood. The payoff wasn't coming from Naomi's downfall. It was already here. But fate wasn't finished balancing the scales. Not yet. The last request. Months passed before Naomi reached out again. This time, it wasn't desperation. It was humility. She asked to meet, not in a hotel, not in a city that remembered her success, but in Savannah, Georgia, where she'd grown up, far from headlines. "I don't want anything," she said over the phone. "I just need to say something without an audience." I agreed. Not for her. For closure. As I packed for the trip, Ethan handed me a folded note. "Read this after you meet her," he said. His eyes were calm, assured. Whatever was inside that paper felt heavy, like the final piece of a puzzle I hadn't fully seen yet.
I didn't know it then.
But Savannah would be where everything came full circle, where Naomi's final lesson would be learned, and where the true meaning of justice, not revenge, would finally reveal itself. Savannah's quiet ghosts. Savannah smelled like salt, moss, and memory. Naomi chose a small cafe near the river. No cameras, no witnesses. She arrived early, sitting with her hands folded like she was waiting for judgment. "I grew up 2 blocks from here," she said softly when I sat down. "Before ambition swallowed me." She didn't waste time. "I didn't just abandon Ethan," she said. "I ran from something." Then she told me about the night she gave birth. About the man she never named publicly. About the threats. About the fear that followed her like a shadow. I listened, not interrupting. But something in her story didn't sit right. Dates blurred. Details slipped. Truth hovered, incomplete. "You didn't trust me," I said finally. "Not then. Not ever." She nodded. "I thought if I kept control, I'd survive."
Control.
That word again. Before we parted, she handed me a sealed envelope. "I should have given you this years ago," she said. "But I was afraid of what it would change."
I didn't open it yet.
Some truths need silence before they speak. The letter. I opened the envelope alone in my hotel room. Inside was a letter and a DNA report. The letter was from a man named Caleb Morris, dated 16 years earlier, written from Raleigh, North Carolina. He claimed Ethan wasn't just Naomi's child. He claimed Ethan was mine, not by blood, by intention. Caleb had wanted to sign away his rights. He had wanted me, not Naomi, to raise Ethan. He saw me as stability, as safety. Naomi intercepted the letter. She never told me. My hands shook as I read the final line. If you're reading this, it means I failed to protect the one woman who truly loved my son. I sat on the bed, stunned. All those years, the universe had tried to tell me. Ethan wasn't an accident in my life. He was alignment. And Naomi knew it. The confrontation. I met Naomi the next morning beneath Spanish moss, near the river. You stole a choice from me, I said, holding up the letter. She broke. Full sobs. No pride left. I was terrified, she said. You were better than me. I knew if I let you choose, you'd keep him. And I didn't want to be replaced. You replaced yourself, I replied quietly. That was the moment the power fully shifted. Not because I took it, but because she gave it up. I don't want forgiveness, she said. I just want you to know I see you now. Seeing me didn't change the past, but it softened the present. Before leaving Savannah, I made a decision that would define the rest of the story. The invitation. Back home in Milwaukee, I finally read Ethan's note. It was simple. Aunt Amber, I don't hate her, but I don't want her to disappear either. I want her to heal, far from us. That was my son speaking. Not with bitterness, with wisdom. I invited Naomi to attend the opening of our largest nonprofit center in Denver, Colorado, not as a guest of honor, but as an anonymous donor.
No speeches.
No photos. Just presence. She accepted. Quietly. For the first time, she chose humility over image. The crowd I never needed. The Denver Center opened to applause I didn't chase. I stood at the back of the room, watching women cry in relief as they realized their stories mattered. That their love wasn't invisible. Naomi stood in the corner, unrecognized, tears in her eyes. She didn't approach me. She didn't need to. I finally understood something that day. The most powerful revenge is becoming so whole that the people who hurt you no longer own space in your heart. But the final payment, the one that would echo, was still ahead. And it wouldn't come from Naomi. It would come from the world she once fooled. The name they couldn't erase. My name began to appear in places Naomi's never would again. Policy papers, university lectures, legal reform panels in Boston and San Francisco. I was no longer introduced as the woman behind the story. I was the story. The irony wasn't lost on me. Years ago, Naomi worked hard to erase me. Now, she couldn't exist in the same rooms I was invited into. Ethan watched one of my talks online, sitting cross-legged on the floor. You look calm, he said. I am, I replied. And for the first time, that wasn't a lie I told to survive. Then something unexpected happened. A journalist from Seattle reached out, not about Naomi but about me. About invisible caregivers. About how systems fail women who love without legal protection. Naomi's name came up only once in the article. As a footnote. The offer. The offer came from Washington, D.C., a federal advisory role on caregiver protection and family reform. I stared at the email for a long time. This wasn't success. This was responsibility. Accepting meant more visibility, more scrutiny, more people dissecting my past, including Naomi's role in it. Ethan sensed my hesitation. Say yes, he said. If you don't, someone else will, and they won't care the way you do. So I said yes. That night, Naomi emailed me for the first time in months. I saw the news. You deserve it.
No guilt. No plea.
Just acknowledgement. It felt complete. The interview. The interview aired nationwide. I told my story without venom. Without theatrics. I named no villains. I focused on systems, not scars. but the public did what it always does. They connected the dots. Naomi's past resurfaced, not because I exposed it, but because truth doesn't stay buried when it's adjacent to light. Former employees spoke up. Old contracts reappeared. Patterns became visible. Naomi didn't respond publicly.
She didn't need to.
Her silence was the loudest confession of all. The question. Ethan got accepted into college in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The night the letter arrived, he hugged me longer than usual. "Do you ever wish you'd chosen a quieter life?" he asked. I thought about it, about the years I spent invisible, about the nights I cried alone, about the woman I became, because no one came to save me. "No," I said. "But I'm glad the noise finally means something." He nodded. "I want to study social work," he said. "Maybe law later." I smiled through tears. Legacy isn't blood. It's direction. The final invitation. A national summit on family reform was announced in New York City. I was invited to give the keynote. Then I saw the agenda. Naomi's name was listed, not as a speaker, as a case study. Her rise,
Her fall.
her confession.
A conscionaritare.
She sent me one last message before the summit. "I won't attend. This is your space now." That was her final surrender. And my final release. Because the last chapter wasn't about watching her fall. It was about what I chose to do with the power that replaced the pain. The room that held my past. The summit hall in New York City was larger than I expected. Rows of faces, cameras humming softly, anticipation thick in the air. I stood backstage, listening to my name announced. Amber Edwin. Not caregiver. Not aunt. Not temporary anything. Just me. As I walked onto the stage, I didn't think about Naomi. I thought about midnight fevers, packed lunches, and the quiet strength it takes to love when no one is watching. I began with a simple sentence. I raised a child the world told me wasn't mine. The room went still. I spoke about invisible labor, about love without paperwork, about how society praises ambition but ignores devotion. And somewhere in the audience, I felt the shift, the collective understanding. This wasn't revenge. This was reckoning. Midway through my speech, the screen behind me lit up. A timeline, a case study. Naomi's name appeared, not as a villain, not as a warning, but as a turning point. I didn't flinch. I spoke carefully, kindly, honestly. When power is built without accountability, I said, it eventually collapses under its own weight. I never said her name again. I didn't need to. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was respectful, sustained, the kind that settles into history. The letter she never expected. That night, in my hotel room, I wrote Naomi a letter. Not to reopen wounds.
To close them.
I told her I released her. Not because she earned forgiveness, but because I no longer needed resentment as proof of my pain. I told her Ethan was thriving, that he knew the truth, that he was loved. I wished her healing, far from us, but real. I mailed it before I could overthink it. Some endings deserve finality. What Ethan called me. Ethan met me at the airport when I returned to Milwaukee. He hugged me, then pulled back, smiling nervously. I told my counselor something today, he said. What? He took a breath. I called you my mom. The word landed softly, but it changed everything. Not because I needed it, but because he chose it. We didn't celebrate loudly. We went home, cooked dinner, and laughed about nothing important. That's what real victory looks like. The debt life collected. Months later, I passed a community center in Savannah bearing a familiar name. Naomi had donated the last of her resources to fund counseling for single mothers, quietly, anonymously.
No interviews. No applause.
Just restitution. I smiled. Life had collected its debt, not through destruction, but through humility. As for me, I wake up each day in a life I built with love, not leverage. I wasn't chosen by blood. I was chosen by truth. And in the end, that was the only justice that mattered. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's rising so completely that their absence no longer hurts. Thank you for listening to my story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos. Thank you.